Right auto when you start working.
What was that?
Right when you're born, you start working.
Yeah. I mean, I lived on a farm, so my sister moved in. She started her own business, so we said, move in with us. We'll help babysit your kids while you get this business going. So now I've had her kids staying with us, and I'm like, I don't want to feed these animals every day. Like you can,
Talking about the kids?
the kids.
Oh, no,
They're
the
pumped
kids.
out there.
Not the
No, I'm
animals, the
saying-
kids, but the animals.
They feed the animals. Yeah,
No, you
I've got
weren't
lots of
talking, you
animals.
weren't referring to the kids as
No,
well.
sorry. Oh, I see. Yeah. No, I feel that way too. And I do. They'll come up to me. Oh, will you give me a glass of water? No. You're big enough. You can pull a chair over to the sink. I was raised in the '80s. I don't buy into this whole helicopter parenting thing. Like, the earlier you can get those kids doing stuff on their own, the better your life is. And so now they came up and negotiated a deal that every time they feed the animals, I pay them $2. So I usually have to go out and feed the animals again afterwards because they're all yelling from hunger. But it starts to build that responsibility, right? So give them another. What was that?
What kind of animals do you have?
We have 4 cows, 5 horses, 20 geese, like 20 goats. I've got a whole bunch. Yeah.
And you pay them to go feed all of them.
Yes. They feed all of them.
But then you have to go back and do it.
Yes. Yeah. We're working on it.
You're sweet.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's more.
It wasn't done right, so you don't get the money.
Yeah. Although last night I made them come back out. I'm like, do you hear the animals are still yelling? We've got to feed them more because they're getting a little bit older, so now they can start becoming more mature. But mostly they're yelling because the 6-year-old wasn't feeding them right. So it's just, I talked to the 8-year-old and said, look, he's still a baby, so you have to be patient. You have to help him to feed
Animals are
properly.
mad at you. They're like,
Oh yeah.
Like, why do you have a feeding me? You should be feeding me.
Yep. So I'm expecting probably the entire summer I'll be paying and double feeding. But so social clock is when do we expect things to happen? So in my family, and again this is social. Sorry, I have it on my computer screen and this screen, so I keep forgetting to move it over. So society expects certain things to happen. Now again, there's subcultures. So in my family, not so much their mom, but I expect kids to be working and participating at a young age. Now, I don't put a lot of pressure on them. They've been living with us for almost a year now, and most of that time, I've just been getting them to come out and help me feed, because they're not old enough. And now they're getting a little bit more responsible. They can actually go out and feed on their own. So we're sort of progressing. Whereas other people, like I had a student once ask how old should a kid be when you give them chores, and I said 2. So then I would give my kid chores. Now, I wouldn't have any expectations of it getting done properly, but you can hand your 2-year-old a little broom and say, go sweep the floor, and you don't expect it to be swept, right?
hell yeah.
Yeah, see? Yeah, because you're from Haiti.
They'll do it, no problem too.
Yep, and they're excited. It builds self-esteem, competence. But my student said, oh, my son's 15 and I haven't given him any chores yet.
Oh.
Well, you screwed up. Sorry. I didn't say that, but I thought it. I mean, that kid has an uphill battle in life if he has not had to do any chores. Like, he has expectations that life will be perfect and easy, and then he's going to get into the real world with a boss that doesn't give a crap about him.
And his place is going to be a mess.
Yes.
He's going to become codependent.
He's going to
Oh,
be
yes.
like, oh man, what do I do now?
And then he's probably going to go
Find a
shoot up
wife.
his business, right? Because he's mad at the mom. And depression rates are skyrocketing for kids who get helicopter parented. They have such high rates of suicide and depression and everything because they expect the world to just be this easygoing place where they get everything. And the truth is, life sucks. That's my mom's motto in life. I've heard that since I was born. Life sucks and then you die.
Yeah,
So get
that's
over
what
it.
my mom would
Yeah.
tell me when I was little.
Right.
Life just sucks sometimes.
Yeah, and that's actually a really good attitude to have because life does suck sometimes, and you just still have to march on and do what needs to be done. Yeah, roll with the punches. So if you've taught your kid to be spoiled and to expect everything to be wonderful, they're going to be sorely disappointed. Okay, so that's social clock. When do we expect things to happen? Now, some cultures, these are the Himbe, I believe, from Namibia. Let me make sure I said that right. I always forget. Yeah, Himba. What was that?
Interesting hairstyles.
Interesting hairstyles. They actually they do mud dreadlocks. So that is mud on their hair. Mud. And
Like, it's because the mud for them is like gel, so it just...
yeah, pretty much. And you see their skin is red, or clay, I guess, more than red. But they also, I keep doing the wrong computer. They also cover their skin in it, so which helps with sunburn and everything. Namibia is a little bit hot. So we have expectations about marriage, childbirth, when somebody's an adult. Like when would you say somebody is an adult here in America?
When they're able to take
When
their-
they're like,
When they're
Oh, in
able to take care of
America.
themselves? Okay.
18.
18? Okay. Men and women, adults at 18? Now, do we really expect them to truly be adults?
No.
No. When would you really say?
25.
Okay. 25. Some cultures, in Jewish cultures, 30 is when a man is considered an adult, which is why in the Bible Jesus began his preaching at age 30, because nobody would have listened to him prior to that because he's not a man yet. So each culture has these different expectations of when certain things happen. The Himba tribe in Namibia, the men are boys until they're married. Does not matter what age they get married, they're a boy.
Wow.
Okay?
So,
Marriage
how
makes
young
you a
are the
man.
marriages? How young do they?
Men tend to get married in their 20s. Okay? So, which is pretty
Like a
typical.
12 or 13, you would see that.
Not for a man. Okay? And when you become a man, if you're married, you get to wear a fancy head thing.
We're not seeing what you're saying,
Oh, I'm sorry.
so you gotta change it twice over there.
Okay? Those are the boys. That's a boy haircut. And it doesn't matter. That's a boy, that's a boy, that's a boy. They're not married. Okay? Once you're married,
Without us, they're nothing though.
yes, without a woman, you're nothing. I like this
that's
dress.
fun.
And then you get to wear a fancy hat once you get married. Now you're a man. Okay? And again, it doesn't matter if you get married at 15 or 50. That the marriage is what makes you a man. Women,
You under there?
dad usually picks who you marry.
Oh, so it's arranged.
It's arranged. And although it's somewhat flexible, especially in the modern age. But puberty determines when you get married. So 13 is not unusual. And then you are a woman when you have a baby. Marriage does not make you a woman. Having a baby makes you a woman. So if you are childless, if you're infertile, then you will never be an adult. You're always considered a little girl,
That's messed
even if
up.
you're 80.
But if the man marries the woman, then he married a little girl, is what it is.
Yes. Yeah. Weird, huh? At least for us, it's weird. For them, it's not. All right, now off-time experiences. Society has expectations. If you do not meet those expectations, we call it an off-time experience. And this is tough on people. Okay? I'm 37. I'm not married. Not so crazy nowadays. But there's stress that's involved if you don't meet the social clock, the social expectations. At my farm, it's a family business, and we also have a wedding venue. We've got a full red barn, and we do weddings there. And we had a couple that booked, and she was 17. Right? That is way too young. Right? She was 18 by the week before she got married. She turned 18.
In our culture, it's too young.
In our culture, it's too young. Other cultures are like, you're getting old, girl. Come on, you need to get
My mom
married.
got married at 14.
Your mom got married at 14? Yeah. You're almost on the shelf. Yes, exactly.
But now look at me, I have no kids. I'm 25. I'm not married, so it's like it's big difference.
Yes.
It's a
And
lot.
for you, is there stress for you even at 25 because of your culture's expectations, like your
yeah.
parents? Yeah. So for typical American, 25, you're like, it's no big deal. I'm only 25. But because she comes from Haiti, there's stress from her society that you've already missed. You're already having an off-time experience. You're not on schedule. You need to hurry this up. You're gonna be on the
Or
shelf.
else you're gonna be on the shelf.
Right. So society really determines the stress level that we're going to experience. Today, if you get a divorce, nobody blinks an eye. When my mom was a kid, and she was born in 1960, so when she was a kid, there was one family in the neighborhood that the woman had gotten divorced, and she was raising her kids as a single mom, and nobody was allowed to play with those kids. And she
Wow.
eventually moved out of the neighborhood because she was treated so bad. Because divorce was scandalous, right? So you're not meeting social expectations, and
What area was that? Was that?
Santa Clara, up in
Oh.
Northern California. Yeah, you'd think would be a bit more liberal,
Yeah.
but back then it was a farm
So
community.
that family probably moved to LA.
Probably, yeah, because places like LA would have had more divorces, more liberal sort of thing, so that it's more accepting. But I mean, back in the 60s, if you were divorced, you're in big trouble. My mom can remember her cousin's parents were very abusive. Terrible people back then. Really nice people in their later years, but raising the kids, it was super abusive. Like beating each other up, holding knives to throats, things like that, bad. And the mom said to one of the older children that she was considering getting a divorce, and she begged her, please do not divorce him, because we will be outcasts. Nobody will have anything to do with us. Please just wait until we're out of high school and divorce him.
Please just keep getting beaten just a little longer.
Yeah, it's crazy. Okay, so the good thing about divorce being shameful is less people got divorced, and so there's lots of marriages that could have worked if they just stuck it out. But at the same time, you have situations like that. Although, to give them credit, they eventually went to therapy, and in their older years, they were just the sweetest couple. I mean, I wasn't allowed to have anything to do with them growing up because they had been so abusive. My mom used to, she grew up down the street, and her parents would drop her off at their house, the cousin's house, when like they wanted to go out on a date or something, and she would escape. She'd climb out the window and escape because she was so scared to be there. And then when I think I was in college, and we were going through Santa Clara, my dad had this stupid idea to go visit them. And I remember my mom was just flipping out, like, I don't want to have anything to do with them. They're horrible people. And then we went there, and they were like, so nice. Like, why didn't you let us have anything to do with them? They're the sweetest couple ever. So if they can make marriage work, anybody can make a marriage work. So they were bad.
Do you think they mellow as they get older? Couples mellow as they get older?
I think they mellow.
Less responsibility, the kids' pressures, the financial pressures, all of that stuff.
I think that helped a little bit, but for them it was definitely, they had to go to couples therapy. Because when my mom was a kid, her little brother was over at the house, and her uncle got mad at him and picked him up by the head of the hair and threw him into the wall. And my mom's dad hated him, so he called CPS, which back then they didn't care. Nobody cared about child abuse back in the 60s. But then he was trying to get custody of his grandson back in like the late 90s, I think, and that was still on his record. And so they said, if you want to adopt your grandson, then you have to go to therapy. And then after that, they're just like the best people. You would never guess what their history was. They were the most adorable couple ever. So, yeah.
Little do you know.
Yeah, little do you know. Right? So I always think of them, like, if they can make a marriage work, then maybe the rest of us should try to stick it out a little bit more. Not that I'm saying you should stick to a marriage if you're getting crap beat out of you, but they beat each other up, hospitalize each other, so I guess, I don't know.
So it's even.
It was even, yeah.
It's an even
It's the poor kids that really suffered. All right, so children. Before 1600, we viewed children as little adults, which you can see in the paintings. This is a little girl, maybe, 6 years old, wearing powdered gray hair. Wearing the dress that an adult would wear. And poor kids, what was that?
That's really low.
Really low, yeah. Poor kids would have adult jobs like chimney sweep, which, because they're smaller, so they can fit down the chimneys to clean them, which the owner of the house did not always put out the fire before that happened, and some children were scalded to death going down hot pipes. Okay. Coal mines, children working in coal mines, it was very common. Let's see. Children, coal mines. Okay, so you can see, even not so long ago, children are still expected to do jobs like that. Okay, so we have these expectations that children should be as mature and capable of doing anything that, well, maybe not capable of doing the same job, but they still were not expected to play and sort of have the freedom that kids nowadays have. Today, if you look at kids, they're really, like, the modern view is children are very innocent, naive, they're easily hurt, they need to be protected, we need to wrap them in bubble wrap and really take care of them, even into the late teenage years, sometimes even into adulthood. And some cultures are worse. If you think America is bad, try being a child in Israel with a Jewish mother. Even when you are an adult, all people, when they turn 18, are required to go into the Israeli military for 2 years. And if you go to military training, if you're on the base and it's lunchtime, you will see all sorts of Jewish moms coming onto base with their home-cooked meals for the children to eat. Okay? And they'll call up. I have there's an LA school, a Jewish school, that comes up to our farm every year, and they do like farm activities. And every year, the whole time, the poor guy that's in charge of it is taking calls from moms, like, how's my kid doing? Are they okay? Are they dirty? You need to give them a bath, blah, blah, blah. It's starting to, this is like the third year, so they're starting to relax a little bit. But yeah, some cultures have different views of children, and it ranges from they're not really kids all the way to they're like these little angels that can't do anything on their own. Now, some of this is because of the life expectancy. In the past, like in 1900, life expectancy was 47. Now, life expectancy is a tricky number because that includes infant mortality. In the past, babies had a really low survival rate. Infant mortality has dropped tremendously in the modern years. So if you excluded teenage and below, if you made it past teenage years, you were just as likely to live as long as anybody lives nowadays. 70, 80, 90 years old, totally possible. 100 years old, totally possible. But to make it past teenage years is really difficult. So there's a different attitude towards children. Many people didn't name their children until they were a few years old because chances are they're going to die. And I live on a farm. If we're going to eat an animal, we don't give it a name unless it's like pork chop or something like that. Because it distances you from it and doesn't hurt your heart quite as much to lose that animal. When we have named an animal, like we have a pig that he's been a breeder pig, so he's been there for a decade. His name is Hamlet, but still it's sort of passionate. Hamlet, yeah. There was an Ophelia, but she committed suicide. But just kidding. Just a Shakespeare joke. If you don't get it, go buy a Shakespeare book and catch up. But so of course he's like when he has to return to sausage, it's gonna suck because he's the family baby at this point. So back then they tried to distance themselves from their children because chances are you're going to lose them. Now, if you are not as close and affectionate to children, then it's not as crazy of an idea as to say, go work in a coal mine, we need money. It becomes easier to do something like that. In modern society, we're very attached to kids. Kids are sort of almost like a toy to some people, I'd say. Like, you wait until you're settled, you have money, now you can go play with the kids, rather than it's just like a part of the family experience. So it's a different attitude that we have towards kids. And part of it is because of the life expectancy of children. Now, the population is getting older, and it's also, the older population is increasing, which has some interesting ramifications for society and development. So there's more grandmas and grandpas around. There's also more of an economic burden on society because more elderly people have to be supported. There's more medical stuff. Of course, there's also benefits if we actually believe in using the elderly as resources in the family, free babysitting and so on. Yeah.
I put that in your mental health profession because I am allowed to say elderly because it has such a.
Oh, has that become politically incorrect?
No, I think it was the APA who actually started to change it. It's older voices now.
Yeah. I still call people retarded. Retarded, the original word in America was idiot. Idiot was an official psychological term. Moron, I think, was the next term after that. Retarded, mentally retarded. Now it's like differently abled.
Well, what does retarded mean?
Slow.
Right, and like in music you say go to the retard or in the music
Retardando or whatever. Yeah.
So
I think it's Italian or something. Retard. Just means to slow down.
Yeah.
So, but we use it to insult each other, and then eventually society says, "Let's stop using this." If you went and called a mentally retarded child a moron, people are going to be real mad. No, it means the same thing. It's an official term. Yeah, it wouldn't go over so well. All right.
I get mad at you for them being less educated.
Yeah.
Shit.
That's how society works. Right there. All right, so this is the population range in 2000, if I remember correctly. So you can see most of the population is middle age, with very few elderly, lots of young. If you look in 2010, you get significantly more elderly. So going up to, the population is almost the same, going all the way up to the 70s. Projections is that this population is going to continue to increase and age. So I think that's 2020 and 2050. So you see more and more elderly. Because healthcare is better, you can keep people alive and so on. So I'm assuming we don't have death panels in the future. We'll have more and more elderly. So there are benefits, pros and cons to this. Obviously, elderly can be great resources. We are, because of the modern lifestyle, we tend to be less healthy when we get into the elderly years. If you look at elderly who survived in the 1800s, they were tended to be super healthy, independent, and so on. Nowadays, it's like, good luck getting to 60 and keeping your health, because we eat so bad, and toxins in the environment, and so on. So it can be an economic burden sort of thing. I don't view it that way, but again, that's my personal culture. I think elderly are great. This is the diversity of older adults of different races, based on the, 95 to 2010. This is the projection from 95 to 2030, and then to 2050. So 2010, 30, 50. So European Americans, more older people, more older African Americans, lots more older Asian and Native Americans, and then Hispanics are doing the best when it comes to population. Any Catholic culture is going to have lots of babies. Catholicism is always, Catholic Church has been smart. You'll take over a country by populating it, so have lots of babies. Versus like Germany that has tried to limit population so much that they actually have gone under the stable number. You have to have a certain number of children per person to keep a country going, otherwise it implodes. It's historical.
They're going to have to start their own EBT office or whatever.
All right. And then if you look around the world, okay, so this is the elderly population around the world. So dark blue is more elderly. So you can see it's expected to everywhere pretty much. Except Africa, because that's a hard place to live. Right? So every place is going to have more older people. Which, of course, there are pros and cons to it. There's also going to be more focus on mental health and healthcare for the elderly, as we've seen. All right, so let's get through this slide and then let's see, we'll take a break. Yeah, 10:20. So the bioecological model.
One more.
Sorry, I'm pressing the wrong button. I'm just going to stop pressing my computer. The bioecological model is also called systems theory, and that's actually what my doctorate is really in. It's called marital and family therapy, but it's in this. So it's the idea that we have multiple systems that we're part of. So who wants to volunteer to tell me about their life? What's your name?
My name's Jonathan.
Jonathan, okay. So you have Jonathan. Is that correctly spelled? Jonathan? No?
Yeah, you're actually the first person who spelled it that way.
Wow, good. Everybody always spells my name S-E-R-E-N-A, so I didn't always use to spell things wrong. I-N-A. So, Jonathan is an individual. What's your personality like? Briefly.
I would say that I'm a bit to myself, but when it comes to things as social gatherings, I like to go out and meet new people.
Okay.
So, like, I would prefer to be by myself, but I have no problem meeting new people.
Okay, so moderately introverted. Are you a risk taker, or do you just like things to be the same?
I would say a bit of both. More in the middle of that one.
Okay, so moderate risk taker. Do you have a lot of anxiety? No? So low anxiety. So you're a calm person? Do you get
I would believe so.
calm? Okay. Happy, depressed, somewhere in the middle?
I would say somewhere in the middle. I believe that there will be times that I'm more depressed than happy, but I tend to be in the middle.
So moderately happy. Okay. So you're sort of a middle of the road kind of guy when it comes to your personality. Okay. Rule breaker or rule follower?
Rule breaker.
Rule breaker. Okay, so we got a rebel here too. A calm rebel. That's probably a good place to be. So that is Jonathan. Now, if Jonathan was an alcoholic, I'm not saying you are. Why would we say he's an alcoholic? What do you think in here could contribute to alcoholism?
Rule breaking.
Rule breaking, okay. Maybe he snuck some alcohol when he was a teenager and got him hooked.
The depression.
Depression, okay.
The introversion.
Introversion could lead to alcohol use.
And meeting new people. That's the common
Maybe meeting new
pastime.
people, especially as a rule breaker, might have met the wrong people.
It's a social drinker.
And then, yeah, and then he's an introvert, a moderate introvert, but he does like socializing. But what introversion is you get a bit of anxiety with socializing. So the alcohol could help him to socialize more. So this is an individual perspective. You are an alcoholic because of personality and character flaws. There's something wrong with you. Now we know that that is not the only reason why somebody becomes an alcoholic. What else could be causing alcoholism?
Abuse.
Family, okay? So you are also part of a family circle. Any alcoholics in your family?
No.
No? Okay. So in his case, there are no alcoholics. So that would be unusual with an alcoholic. Most alcoholics do have other alcoholics. Do you have anybody who's addicted to anything? Caffeine, drugs, cigarettes?
Caffeine.
Okay, so we have caffeine addiction.
Is everyone addicted to something?
Yep.
Everybody has a small addiction to something.
I think that's a large claim to say it's a true addiction. Most people are not really addicted. Now, we do have preferred ways of self-soothing, which is what addiction is. But is it all the way to the level of an addiction? That's much rarer. So I would not say everybody's addicted, but
Because of the problem, then it becomes an addiction.
so for instance, your preferred way of self-soothing might be to go eat some ice cream. But if there's no ice cream, will you totally flip out, or
Yes,
do you just?
I will.
Okay, so you might be a sugar addict. I'm a sugar addict. I'll admit, no problem at all. I'm a total sugar addict. Any diabetics in your family?
Yep, it runs in the family.
Okay. Diabetes runs in your family, so does addiction. Okay. Well, most likely, unless you've just got like a bad pancreas genetics. But sugar addiction is a real addiction. Sugar does the same thing to your brain that heroin does. And so diabetes may be a result of that sugar addiction in the family. Like my grandma, she's a diabetic because she's a sugar addict. There's nothing wrong with her pancreas. She broke it herself. Okay? Well, she doesn't have the pancreatic issue, but so whether it's type 1 or type 2 diabetes would play a role. Okay, so we can look at the family history, family genetics, family culture. Is there an addictive culture in the family? So food addiction. Every time you were upset, mom gave you ice cream and popsicles or bread or some sort of carb in order to soothe you. That makes sense why you're now addicted to sugar.
You associate it with soothing.
You associate it with soothing, and that becomes your coping skill. You don't develop other skills. That's really what addiction is that I only have this one way to cope. And so I stick with that, and it becomes my preferred way of helping me to deal with stress and everything. What else besides family? Is it the family's fault? We did blame the mother especially throughout history of psychology for screwing kids up. Schizophrenia was caused by the schizophrenogenic mother. It's a mother who treated her child in such a way that it triggered schizophrenia in the kid.
Yeah, my mom actually wanted, when I was little, wanted to send me to therapy for depression, but she was afraid of being blamed for it, so she chose not to.
Yep. Yeah, and even nowadays, therapists will still, there's a lot of bad therapists out there. People will ask me, who do you recommend I go to for therapy? And like, besides me, there's a small list I'll recommend, very small list. All right, who else? What else besides family? Who or friends? Friends.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Environment, yes. So genetics comes from your family. There's different things in the environment. So friends would be another circle that you might be part of. So if you have friends who are alcoholics, then they're more likely to give you alcohol. I grew up in Rialto, which there's a lot of drug and alcohol use. But for some reason, my friends decided me and my sisters were like the ones who could get out of the ghetto. And so we were not allowed to do any of that. Matter of fact, we were threatened. If we ever catch you doing any drugs or drinking any alcohol, we'll beat the crap out of you. Because that's how in Rialto, that's how they handled everything. Just get into a fight. Great. We actually had a rule at Eisenhower High School that you never brought a gun or a knife to school because at some point you probably get into a fight with your friends and you don't want to kill them. That was a rule. You leave your guns in the car. So everybody left their guns in the car. Never had a school shooting. Okay, so friends could be a risk factor or a protective factor. What else? What other systems are we part of?
Job.
Work, okay. You work as a bartender, it might be a problem. What was that?
Or school.
School, okay, so you've got work, you've got school is another one. Circles are getting too big now. School. What else?
I think you're looking
Yep. Everything outside of the genetics of the family is environmental. So you've got school, you've got, if he goes to BBC, religion. Are you religious?
No.
No? Okay, so he's not religious. That's actually a risk factor for addiction. Religious people are much less likely to be addicted to something. Not that it's impossible, but it significantly decreases the chances. So if you're dealing with an alcoholic, you might suggest that they go to church or something like that, develop faith if they can. It could be a helpful thing. Used to be in psychology, you could absolutely not even talk about religion. You could lose your license. But nowadays, people expect that you should have some conversation about religion or spirituality or something.
Well, I mean,
Obviously, you shouldn't push it on the person.
If you ignore the fact that religion doesn't play a big part in helping people cope with things, then you're really denying your clients the help they need.
Yeah, because faith of some variety is a significant factor in helping people to deal with life. So you don't ignore that. You've got culture. Okay, if you are Irish, I lived in Ireland for 3 years. The chances of you drinking alcohol, I met one person who didn't drink the entire time I was in Ireland, just a guy I was engaged to, because I don't drink. I grew up in a teetotaler household, no alcohol allowed. So what was that?
I said in Ireland.
I didn't grow up in Ireland, but he did, and he doesn't drink.
They must have looked at him funny.
Yeah.
They did, yeah, they did.
He was the outcast.
Yeah. Well, when he was in high school, there was like an they did the rings, sort of like the chastity, but the abstinence rings, but it was for drinking, because of course alcohol is such a problem in Ireland. Although Irish people don't become alcoholics as fast as other cultures, but they drink so much that they tend to have a lot of alcoholics.
Like a sober ring.
Sober ring, there you go. Who said that? You did.
Me.
All right, so culture. We also have can't see it, but the time period in history, right? So what decade, century did you grow up in is going to significantly affect what generation you're part of, what country you grew up in. All of these things are going to affect the problem. So when Freud did therapy, he would have worked with Jonathan, and that was it. And he'd work with Jonathan's issues and help Jonathan, and we'll get him off of alcohol. But now we know that it's hard to get somebody off of alcohol or any addiction if you don't also work with the family, or you don't work with their cultural issues or their friendship issues. Like if you get out of a rehab clinic, one of the things they tell you is you need to make new friends. Don't go hang out with the same people, because they're going to get you back into those drugs and alcohol. So you can't just work with the individual. This is a small part. I mean, here's the individual, and then there's all of these other circles, all these other systems that we're part of, and they could all be influencing it.
And they all weigh down on the individual.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So all of these systems affect you, and you affect all of the systems. It's interrelated. All right, so this is the bioecological model by a guy named Yuri Bronfenbrenner. So you have the individual, their immediate environment, their relationships, the social context, and the cultural context. And then really there should also be a time context or chronosystem. So we try to say the microsystem is the immediate environment. The mesosystem is their relationships. The exosystem is the social system, so school, work, religion, so on. The macrosystem is the culture. For instance, if you are an alcoholic who's Irish versus an alcoholic who's African American versus an alcoholic who's Native American, they're three separate alcoholism issues, right? It's not just alcoholism. A Native American is going to be alcoholic for very different reasons than a Black American or an Irish American. Okay.
And they have preferred drinks.
Preferred drinks. Druggies have preferred drugs. They have their drugs of choice. So we can't ignore, if you're working with a Black American, there could be a lot of racial issues. There's a lot of tensions between blacks and whites, and history of slavery and so on that's going to play a role. You work with a Native American, they have their own history of oppression. And depending on the tribe, some were really screwed up. Like, I'm part Native American on my dad's side, because of course they went into Indiana and they met some good-looking Indian girls there. And my tribe was exterminated. There's hardly any of them left. So we got Shawnee, you ever heard of Tecumseh?
Mm-hmm.
Right,
yes.
very famous. Yeah,
sure.
That's the tribe. But Tecumseh lost, and basically, Shawnee left. So versus the Navajo, right? They've got the biggest reservation in the country. There's a lot of them. Joke is Navajos breed like crabs. I lived on the Navajo reservation, so I can make that joke. All sorts of Yazis and things, bigays, and I love the Navajo. I love to tease them. They get beat up by the Apache all the time. But their alcoholism is going to be maybe a different cultural issue than a Shawnee who's an alcoholic or a black person who's an alcoholic. Oppression generally is a part of addiction, whether it's social, cultural oppression, familial oppression, abuse within the family, but that's always going to be a part of addiction. So you have to be able to recognize that. So that's culture, and then of course the time frame. My grandma's overeating issues are going to be a different case than like a 20-year-old with eating issues. Obviously, my grandma's eating issues come from growing up in a starvation time period, whereas a 20-year-old may be overeating because of family abuse. If anybody is extremely obese, like the 600-pound life show.
I watched that. It's crazy.
If somebody is that obese, they've been sexually molested, guaranteed, 100%. Watch the show.
They don't want to be seen.
Yep, it protects them, gets people away from them in a sense. Yeah, very
They
good.
try to make themselves unattractive.
Yep, you don't want to have any sexual interest in me if I look like this. And even if you do touch me, it's almost like if my body is extended all the way out to here, then it's sort of not me in a sense. So it helps you, literally you're distancing yourself from any abuse that goes on. Alright, so this is an interactionist model. All these systems interact with each other. Culture and time and the individual and relationships, these are all systems that are interacting. And you can't understand a problem without understanding each of these systems. You're missing very important bits of information. If somebody's suffering from depression, you need to understand their family as well as that person. You need to understand, is culture playing a role? Is genetics playing a role? What is going on with this person? And you can't understand that without looking at all of these. And sometimes you can't change the person without changing these systems as well. Okay. So for instance, alcoholism, we found much higher success rates if you bring the family, especially the spouse, into therapy. Because a lot of spouses, you mentioned codependency earlier, this person is easier to get along with if they've been drinking. It's usually the case with an alcoholic. And so let's just keep them drinking. I'll buy the alcohol. Watch 600-Pound Life. They're checked into a hospital. They don't have the ability to move, and who's bringing them hamburgers and french fries?
Family.
Their family, right?
Loved ones. Because
So-
they don't want to upset them. They don't want.
They think they're
But you're helping
most
them
right.
die.
You're helping them die, yeah. And they don't want to hurt them majority of the time. They're not evil. They're not trying to hurt the person. But there's just sort of a dynamic that has developed where everything works better if we just do this. And they have their own issues. They all have their own mental health issues. So if you're not helping the family, you're not going to help poor Jonathan here who's an alcoholic.
And it's like instead of bringing them that stuff, just replace it with something else. You don't have to just cut it off.
But they don't have much better coping skills either, right? Yeah. All right, any questions about this? Making sense? All right, let's take a break let's see, it's 10:30, 20 minutes, something like that.